your host, Cain Stevens. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Super Show. I'm your super host, once again, Cain Stevens, and I have another amazing guest. I'm super excited to talk about this next guest and to talk to them because they have an amazing story and something that I myself am very interested in, and I think that you, as the audience, are going to be interested too. So I'm not even going to waste too much time with all the blah, blah, blahs that I usually do. I want to get this guy in right away. So let's give a round of applause for my guest, Fred Rutman, everybody. All right. Yeah, all right. Insert clap noise here. Fred, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks, Cain. How are you?
I'm doing good. So when we talked before, you're hailing from Canada right now, correct?
Yes, I'm in Toronto area.
And how is it up there right now? I'm pretty far from you. I'm in the middle of the United States right now.
Well, it's a rare sunny day. This is a very cloudy city.
Hmm.
You hear about places like Vancouver and Portland being very cloudy. This is up there with cloudy.
Man,
So when we get a day like this, it's a good sign.
you guys are kind of like the Seattle of of Canada, right? You guys are just cloudy and rainy, or what?
Cloudy, rainy. Yeah, we've got all the same stuff. The homelessness, the crappy roads.
Yeah.
You got it. We got it. They seem to go together.
I'm absolutely fascinated by Canada because it's like I often ask myself, and I love America, but I ask myself, shouldn't I just go to Canada? And the thing that's holding me back from going there is you guys have the coldest weather, man. Like I couldn't handle it. How do you guys handle that cold weather all the time?
Well, there's one thing to be said for being born into it. You sign it, you kind of you evolve into it. Like I grew up in Winnipeg, which people call Winterpeg or the coldest place in the universe.
Yeah.
And it's also the flattest place in the universe. I didn't see a hill until I moved to Toronto. I had no idea what hills were. So
Yeah. It's
then I
kind of
went
like
for a bike ride
Nebraska.
here and
It's kind of like
it was just
Nebraska
like,
where I live right now, where we don't have a lot of we're basically like in a valley, so we're basically like Passover country for everybody here. Have you been to the United
hmm.
States before?
Yeah. I've got relatives in, I think we counted 25 cities last time we did a count because that's how exciting our lives are. We're counting how many cities we have relatives in. So I've actually got cousins in Omaha.
Oh, perfect. Well, let's dive
So,
into.
done the whole, been to Warren Buffett's house and everything.
So you've done more than I have. I haven't been to Warren Buffett's house and visited. We kind of think of Warren Buffett as this, kooky old guy that knows how to make a bunch of money. But I honestly don't even have any idea. I know he's kind of in the old money area of Omaha that's really cool. Where
Mhm.
it's like all those, like what you would look at and think like, oh, these are like rich old haunted houses, right? Right? Like that's how they all look.
The ghost of Warren Buffett. Ooh.
He'll be
Well,
there someday.
it's funny. So people have this impression of him that he's like this very frugal old guy and lives in the same house he got married in like 1952 or whatever. But they also forget that he's got like six other homes around the country that aren't so frugal, and he's got his private jet, and when he's in these other places, he's got these chauffeur, whatever, the guys that drive your cars.
Yeah.
He's got those and things like that. So at home, yeah, he's a little low key. Everywhere else, not so low key.
Well, yeah, I would live that way too. That is funny that you say that because, like, there's rumors that he like slept in a dresser drawer when he was a kid, and his family was kind of that
Mhm.
way, and all this stuff. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I know he's definitely revered as the guy who can make people money consistently. So, shout out to Warren Buffett. If you want to come on the show and shower me with money, and I would love that too. So, Fred,
Yeah, that would be a fascinating conversation.
Oh, I would love that, man. That would probably be that would easily be the most famous person I've talked to. And I know that you wouldn't look at Warren Buffett as a guy who's like, it's not celebrity famous, but I mean he's known throughout the world. So I would say he's pretty
Hmm.
famous overall. Um,
Absolutely.
so Fred, let's talk about why we brought you on the show. We brought you on the show to talk about one, you're a podcast host, which I love having other podcast hosts on. And you were on the Dead Man Walking podcast, correct?
Yes, that's my little baby.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. Had a lot of really interesting people on there.
What type of interviews do you do? I mean, is it kind of like my show where you just talk to all different walks of life and just kind of enjoy the human experience? What type of show is it?
Yeah, I call it sort of like the Joe Rogan, very, 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 very light.
Yeah.
Um, when I initially started it, I thought I'd have people who were writing books because I just wrote a book and people had helped me, so I wanted to help other people. Um, I used to be a finance prof, so I thought I'd have all sorts of small business people on, and sort of scope sort of got narrower and narrower. Now I primarily have people on who have, like me, um, overcome some serious adversity and came out on the other side and want to be an inspiration to people. So that's the large majority of my current um, guests, I guess. I just had a lady on who was ran an S&M house about 10 blocks from where I live, like in the middle of suburbia. There's CEOs flying in from all over the world for her to, you know, spank and whatever weird things she did to them. And she ended up getting arrested, and her case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and she won. I don't know what she won, but she won something. And
She didn't go to jail, right? That's the key. So she won that.
yeah, she didn't go to jail. Her girls didn't go to jail. Um, but she spent like $2 million on this court fight. So
Jeez.
you must be spanking a lot of people to come up with that kind of dough to fight the government.
A lot of baby costumes and whips and chains and all.
Oh, so you've met her.
Yeah, yeah, I've been there a couple of times. I frequented for, much to my wife's dismay. But so you do have an interesting story. You mentioned interesting stories in adversity. I'll preface this by saying I too have had some things. 3 years ago, I have heart problems. I nearly
Okay.
died due to my heart problems. I have heart failure. I have a pacemaker, but with medication
Yeah.
and everything, I'm doing pretty.
Team pacemaker.
Yeah, yeah. You too. Yeah.
I've had 5 or 6 of them.
How has that been for you? I mean, it's an interesting thing to meet other people with pacemakers because when I talk to like other people who don't, they kind of just act like, no big deal. I mean, to me, it's a big deal. My heart's run 100% off of this thing, so it's a
Mhm.
really big deal to me. But when you talk to like the regular person who doesn't have any of that, they're just like, oh yeah, my grandma had one years ago, no big deal. How's it been for you?
It's been both the blessing and the curse. It's been a nightmare because I've had like 5 failures
Hmm.
and I'm also 100% dependent on it.
Yeah,
So when it stops, I stop.
yeah,
And so that's pretty problematic. Um, it's, yeah, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with a pacemaker, it's probably the size of an old pocket watch. And it's basically a supercomputer. I mean, these things are more sophisticated than the Challenger spacecrafts and the fighter pilots of fighter planes of the early 90s. And depending on your condition, they replace your heartbeat because something's preventing your heart from beating. And it I wish my cell phone would have the same battery that these things have because they can last, 15 years. But
yeah.
on the downside, you can't charge them.
No, he just kind of that's always the worry for me is it's like I always worry about the dumbest stuff like say a zombie apocalypse hits, right? And then like
Mm,
there's no medical care whatsoever. I mean, I know this is like a grim thing, but this is just the way my mind works. I start thinking like I'm
Mhm.
literally a walking time bomb at that point, right? I mean, unless the medical system comes back, I mean, your battery is just ticking down. And what are you going to do? Find a fly by night pacemaker heart surgeon who's got a bunch of them sitting back there ready to go? I don't think so.
Well, they do have like stocks of them in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know if the hospitals in the US work the same way, but here they have buying groups.
Hmm.
So a whole bunch of hospitals will get together and they'll say, okay, this is probably the most common type of pacemaker we need. So let's get together and buy, 300 of them.
Yeah.
And then they just sit there until they're, get close to running out of stock. And then they go for the newest upgrade models.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. It really is. Mine's an ICD also. So, which I'm
Mhm.
assuming yours probably is too. So,
Uh-uh.
oh no, not. So mine could be a defibrillator if necessary. So if I went into cardiac arrest, it would, I wouldn't need someone to hit me with the paddles. It would hit me right away with, the voltage that hopefully you would need. But
Yeah.
the more important thing about this is Fred, and I want to get into your book because your book is most interesting to me. For
Mhm.
those of you guys, we're going to introduce you to Fred's book, but Fred has, yeah, Fred, you've died multiple times, right? And
Mhm.
I'm sure that affects your mindset. I mean, I have not died and come back. I have come close to, where my body was really failing me, but you really come to a mindset of you start to when you're looking straight in the face of mortality, you really start to look at life differently, don't you? I mean, I can't say for you, but I do. When I go outside, I appreciate everything. I could be all, you know, kumbaya and run my fingers through the grass and all, but I just appreciate everything more. I mean, how is it for you?
For sure. I don't see how you can, but for me, my situation was a little different from yours in that they didn't figure out what was happening to me for like 4.5 months.
Hmm.
And so I should also preface this by saying that when I say I died, that means I was clinically dead. And you may or may not know there's a whole bunch of different definitions of clinically dead. So the one they gave me was your heart has stopped for 30 seconds or longer, and you also haven't breathed or taken a breath for 30 seconds or longer.
Right.
And we know I had a number of instances when it was way longer than that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, um, but also almost every time that my heart stopped, I was in an upright position and I collapsed and I smacked my head on whatever was the hardest object in the vicinity.
Hmm.
So I also got a lot of concussions and brain trauma. And I didn't realize I was dead. Like this happened like 16, 18 times or whatever the number was before a doctor actually said, "Holy shit, you've been dead. Like
Yeah.
your heart's been stopping." And it took a long, long time to process that. And some days I think I still haven't processed it. And it's been, 14 years or whatever. So
And so did they come up with a did they finally come up with why after all that time why this was happening to you?
they did. They told me the condition, but as to why the condition happened, they haven't figured out. So it's called a sudden onset full heart block,
Hmm.
which is fairly normal if you're in your mid 70s, not in your mid 40s.
Yeah.
And what that means is the nerve bundles that are in your heart that tell it when to beat, they started dying off. So the signal that was telling the ventricle and atria to pump, pump, pump just stopped.
Jeez.
And, you know, they just don't know why. It just did. And it's not that hard to diagnose when you're looking for it. But when you're not looking for it or you don't catch it in the moment, you just have no idea what's going on.
Hmm.
And I don't want it to sound like I'm slagging on the medical fraternity. I'm not. That's just what the situation was. And a lot of people just kept trying to prove I was having a heart attack. And then I understand that. I'm a middle-aged fat white guy.
Yeah.
That's like the easy diagnosis. But when you haven't, when you've tried 15 times and that hasn't been the thing, maybe it's time to look for something else.
Right. Maybe it's time to look through the books a little bit and see what else could be going on. Mine
Hmm.
started at 38 is when I'm
Okay.
42 now, and it's interesting because the human body is so fascinating, right? I mean, because it's so complex. Like, why would your heart just stop doing that thing? It's really a mystery. Well, why was my heart muscle weak? They surmise that maybe it was a virus that attacked it. Maybe it was just bad genes on my family's part. Like maybe it was something that was just kind of passed down to me, or maybe like a birth type deal that just kind of
Hmm.
made it all the way through. Who knows? But I look at it through the future part of it. Right? I mean, I've got three beautiful kids. I've got a wife. I've got two dogs. I've got a good life going on here, and I just kind of clamor it every day and every second. As I really am glad to be talking to someone like yourself, not just because we share some similarities, but just because I think this is a cool experience. Podcasting is a great outlet. I think everyone
Hmm.
should be doing it. I'm glad they're starting to teach it in schools and all
Hmm.
that. But it's wonderful to be able to share these experiences with you, and then to have our experiences shared to the listener and them take something from it. And I hope that they take something from your book, Fred. Your book is "The Summer I Died 20 Times," and I think what it
Hmm.
came out in what 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, just about a year ago, actually.
Okay, perfect. And so obviously let's talk about the book and why you wrote it and what you wanted to get out of it, without giving the secret sauce away.
Well, I initially had no intention of writing a book. I've always been a bit of a writer because I come from a marketing and finance background. So, I mean, in university, I wrote for the university paper. Um, I also wrote for small ethnic newspapers in Winnipeg, and uh, and writing content and business stuff. But um, after this started happening to me, my therapist suggested I try some journaling. And I tried journaling, and I just was so beat up from all the brain trauma and post concussion that I couldn't be consistent with it.
Yeah,
So I'd get down a few words here and a few sentences there, and I just couldn't keep it up. But then after a couple of years of this is probably 2000, this all started in 2009.
okay.
In 2013, uh, a friend of mine said, you've got this amazing story. Why? There's a short story writing contest. There was a national short story contest coming up. Why don't you put it in there and see if you can make a go of it? I thought, oh, okay. And then they said, oh, by the way, the deadline's in a week. So it was and at that point I just didn't have the skills to get it down to the maximum submission level, which I think was like 1,600 words, and I had like 4,000 words or something. I just couldn't compress it. And then from then on, every so often, I just get some inspiration and write a little and write a little. And I joined a couple of writing groups on Facebook and through the local library, and just started making connections and people offering advice. And then COVID came. So I had no choice but to just sit on the deck and, look into the park that's behind the house and write. That's how it really came to its conclusion.
Yeah. COVID was amazing in some ways, as weird as that is, because it brought out so much creativity in everyone because they had to kind of go back to the basics. Everyone was stuck in their homes. Everyone was afraid to go, to their next door neighbors, even have family members come.
Mhm.
And so you just sit down and you do a bunch of creative things. So, I think it's amazing that decided to do that around that time, and then you got a full book out of it. Did you end up going through like Amazon for publishing, or how did you find publishing on all that?
I found a traditional publisher, not a huge publisher,
Hmm.
and they're based out of San Antonio, Texas.
Hmm.
It's called Black Rose Writing with Reagan Roti is the creator, as he calls himself.
Yeah,
Sounds very godlike.
yeah, as it should be, I guess, for for that.
Yeah. So he's a really good guy, and he's put together a really good team. And they've published about 700 authors. So it's not huge, but it's not the teeny tiny guy.
Yeah.
And but even with a publisher, man, it's a lot of work. And I have an MBA. I should have a little understanding of business,
Hmm.
and I've taught business for years. Um, but you can't imagine how much work you have to do beyond the writing and getting the book published in getting it out there and getting on podcasts and getting media and all that stuff, getting it in bookstores.
Right.
It's grunt work.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It, it's probably a thankless endeavor on some things, and a thankful endeavor in others. You're glad you got it out there. Where
Mhm.
can people find your book now? I mean, can they find it on Amazon and different places?
It's definitely on Amazon. I've been told it's also on Walmart.com and Barnes and Noble. I haven't checked, but it's available as the traditional paperback, as a Kindle, and as an audiobook.
Awesome. Well, I would invite the listener to check it out. Let's talk about the summer that you died 20 times. We kind of grazed on it a little bit, but let's elaborate a little more. I essentially want to talk to you about what you saw, like what happened. I know that you said you can kind of remember a little bit of it, and some of it you can't. You just remember waking up. So let's talk. Let's kind of go back to those moments a little bit. When you did have these things happen to you, I mean, were you aware mentally that you had died, or at least something had happened of that nature?
I was aware that something have happened of some nature.
Hmm.
Uh, it was the last thing on my mind was that I had died.
Yeah.
Uh, Initially, the first few times this happened, I thought I was having some like wicked bout of food poisoning or something
Right.
because it just was so off the charts different. And I think at some point in the book, I say something along the lines of, the dying part was easy. Like that was, you
Yeah.
know, it was the coming back to life part that really, really, really sucked, which surprises people. But you've got a million processes or however many in your body that are all trying to restart at the same time. And, if you've ever had to try and start your car on a really, really cold day and it's just not coming back to life and you're, "Grr, grr, grr," I'm sure a car engine and the transmission, they feel some pain while they're doing that. And this was like my entire body being hit by bombs and bolts of lightning at the same time. That's the best way I can describe it. It was really, really unpleasant.
Yeah. I can only. I mean, did your mind go into because your mind can go into an instant dream state depending on did you go into some sort of dream state? Did you see anything while this was taking place?
I had a whole bunch of out of body experiences. Um, I didn't have the traditional come to the light kind of experiences. And I do feel kind of ripped off.
Yeah.
Like I can understand if this happens to you once or twice and you don't have that. But like when you're getting into the 20s and the 30s and the 40s of this happening to you, like give me one, you know, like let me see my grandmother, like, something like that. But none of it. But the out of body experiences in themselves are also pretty interesting. So,
Could you
you
were
know,
would you be literally like above your body? Like, could you were you able to see like the surroundings and see yourself? Like, was it a true out of
yes,
body experience? Really?
absolutely 100%. And it's a very uncomfortable situation to be in. And it's like your body, if you're more of the traditional religious bent, like you believe there's a heaven and a hell and you have a soul, it's almost like your soul's kind of looking down on you. And, I was in bed or I had fallen off my bike in the middle of nowhere, wherever it was. And like your soul's deciding or looking for guidance, I guess, maybe. Well, do I go back in? Like, is this the final one? Or do I go upstairs? Do I go downstairs? And it's like this huge tug of war between these celestial forces. And, you have no say in the matter, right? Like you're conscious, but it's just you're being pulled and pulled and tugged and pulled and not so gently. And I guess I eventually went back into the body.
And that's
So,
I'm just kind of blown away. To usually I watch a lot of these videos. Like I'll go to YouTube and I'll watch like NDE videos, people
mhm,
getting their what happened to them. A lot of it is like a large, bright light, or yeah, seeing grandma
mhm,
or transcending to it. But there are a lot of people who do have the out of body where they do see themselves. So it's it's amazing to talk to somebody who's actually been through it, because I haven't met a lot of people who have. I haven't met very many
mhm.
people. I would love to talk to them. If there's any listeners out there who've had the same experience, please get a hold of me. But what did it change for you? I think the number one thing that I want to know before we go to break here is what did it change for you? I mean, did it make you more religious? Did you look at life in a different way? Did you say, "Oh, religion's a bunch of hooey"? At that point, what did it change for you mentally?
It changed a few things. I mean, I've always been a very strong believer in God. Um, I'm Jewish. We didn't grow up religious, but I certainly knew a little bit about God. And I just firmly believe that something out there had to create all of this. It can't be just all random. When I finally started getting my brain together, which took a number of years after all this, I don't think I became one of these people that's like, God, if you find me a parking spot when I'm really late for this appointment, you know, I'm going to start coming to church 4 times a day and, all that stuff. It didn't happen to me. Um, but I did become definitely more appreciative of the people around me. I'm a much nicer person than I was 15 years ago. Not that I wasn't a nice person, but I think I'm a much nicer and more balanced, more considerate person than I was because this was such an arduous recovery that if it wasn't for the people in my various communities, you know, I wouldn't be where I am now. It's just there's I think it's Malcolm McDowell, the author, um, Malcolm Gladwell, who said something along like as an adult, your personality is the composite of the 5 or 7 or 10 people you spend the most amount of time with. And for whatever reason, I just got surrounded by superstars, like the Olympians of generosity and consideration and wanting to help you. And I've gone more that route.
That's an amazing way of doing it. I had a similar I had similar things with me. Once again, I didn't die. I just had health problems, health issues that
Mhm.
are probably going to kill me very quickly. Um, but I have noticed since I've gone through what I've gone, I've kind of found the same thing. Like, people have really stepped up and been so generous and so nice and just so sharing their spirituality with me. And it's just like I
Mhm.
don't know. It's like I lucked out into a better life afterwards. Honestly, it's like it was always meant to happen this way. And I don't know if you're one. I am one to think that everything's for a reason. That the suffering, the everything, all the things that I've been through in my life, and I've been through a lot of tragedy, was all for a
Mhm.
reason. And so I applaud you for doing the same. It sounds like you took it to another level. You become a better character of yourself. And when we come back from the break, Fred, I want to talk a little bit more about this. Maybe ask you some strange questions too, which is usually what I
Sure.
second half. So stick around, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Don't turn that dial. And we'll be back right after this commercial from the Elegant Sasquatch.
Hey there, grooming gurus. We've got something wild for you today.
That's right, folks. Get ready to tame the untamed with products that redefine the beard game. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company.
Elegant Sasquatch, that sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it?
Well, grooming should be an adventure, my friend, and with these products, you'll embark on a journey to the grooming wilderness.
So, what makes the Elegant Sasquatch so unique?
It's all about taking your beard from beastly to beautifully wild. Picture this: you wake up and your beard looks like it just got back from a spa day. That's the magic of their high end beard balms.
Spa day for the beard? Sign me up. And let's not forget their beard butters and oils. It's like giving your beard a tropical vacation. I'm talking about a beach party for your facial hair.
A beach party for the beard. This company's got the best marketing ever.
Oh, but we're not done yet, folks. The Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company also has beard washes that make shower time a majestic experience.
Showering with Sasquatch, that sounds like a reality show.
It does, but seriously, listeners, if you want to sophisticate your outer beast, head over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW at checkout for an exclusive discount of 20% off.
You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram. Check them out, like them, and while you're at it, tell them the Super Show sent you.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Once again, the Elegant Sasquatch commercial. I think we got some other commercials coming up too. I know the Elegant Sasquatch has been hitting me up to, man, you've been playing that commercial for an awfully long time. Let's get another one or two on there. So, so
Hey,
that's
I
coming.
have to ask, what is the Elegant Sasquatch?
The Elegant Sasquatch. I'm glad you asked, Fred. It's basically like beard balms and that type of stuff. I believe they're out of New Jersey. That's a good friend of mine, Chris. He does it, and he does all the product and gets those beards smelling good and growing the way they should. And I don't really I have like a goatee, but that's all I can get to grow. Like I can't grow like a real man's beard.
Okay, so I have to admit, I thought you said beer bongs
Oh crap,
and you were saying beer bombs,
beard
which
balm.
is hilarious.
I have to enunciate it better, especially in commercials, because beard and beer come out very similar in the commercials,
Hmm.
especially when in editing, it kind of like takes that D away. So I always worry about that. So no, it's not beer bongs, but that'd be something for another sponsor if they want to sponsor the show as well.
Yeah, and I think if you've had a few beer bongs, makes every other pronunciation a little more difficult after that.
It does. I've had my share of beer bongs over the years. I can remember drinking out of like beer helmets and all different
Hmm.
things too when I was younger. Which is this is a horrible segue into my other sponsors, but that's okay. I swear I'm not drinking right now. Slying
Now
Tattoo.
to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and
Yeah, exactly. Slying Tattoo with Bryce. Go get your tattoos from him. Don't do it wasted. Don't make a wasted decision. Get a hold of Bryce and schedule those great tattoos here in Lincoln. Also, we have Liberty Contracting for your concrete needs, and we have Roots Music Shop also here in Lincoln. Go talk to Ryan, get those instruments fixed, and get those sweet. Man, he's just got. Honestly, the other day I was in there and he had a boatload of really good vintage guitars So go in there and get those while you can, everybody. So I'm back here with my guest, Fred Rutman. He's a podcast host. If you haven't been listening to the first half, he's an author of The Summer I Died 20 Times. And now we're going to talk to Fred a little bit more about the death thing, but we're going to move in. We're going to get a little bit stranger. We're going to go past death too, Fred, and we're going to talk about ghosts and all that weird stuff. We generally do that in the second half. So I'm assuming when this stuff happened to you, you said you really didn't have any visitations from like spirits or anything like that at that time. Did you have anything afterwards? Did you have any sort of hauntings or any sort of visitation like that after this stuff happened to you?
I don't know if they're visitations or hauntings, but I fairly regularly have dreams of my late parents or relatives in, and the dreams are the just like most bizarre, surreal, uh, and sometimes they talk and sometimes they just like stare at you like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, which are always interesting to try and figure out what just happened there. Why did I have this dream? Are they sending me a message or whatever? But, coming from Judaism, and, if those of you have questions about Judaism, uh, and anything I say, contact your local Orthodox rabbi. So I know a little bit, can't profess to be the most expert in any of these topics, but we do believe in spirits and all sorts of entities that go around the world and do their business.
Well, I mean, those books are, these sacred, even like me being in Christianity, Christianity is based off of a lot of the, Jewish texts and all of that too. And obviously, they're supernatural books. I mean, some of our earliest texts throughout history have all been supernatural in nature. They've talked about spirits. They've talked about all sorts of things, giants, fairies. I mean, that name it, and it's been out there. I think that it's harder to prove that it doesn't exist than that it does anymore, to be honest with you. Just like and I know this will be controversial for some of you guys who aren't religious, but I truly think that it's that way when it comes to God as well. I think that it's honestly harder to prove that there isn't a God than that there is. You get what I mean? Because I mean, just look around you. I mean, just look at I've said this on a few podcasts. Just look at your hand and turn it over and look at the intricacies of your hand, and every line and everything has a purpose, and everything had. And I refuse to believe that there's no reason for it whatsoever, that we're just these microorganisms that molded into these amazing, whatever we are, tubs of meat. And then, here we are in the universe where if you look at the stars, and if you're not a crazy, dome flat earther, and I apologize, then you kind of realize that the cosmos are pretty interesting too, and that there's an amazing universe out there. But, Fred, for you, you talked about spirits and ghosts. Can you elaborate on, like in Judaism, like what types of spirits or entities are you referring to?
Well, there's the whole gamut. Like there's good spirits and bad spirits and mischievous spirits and uh, spirits that seem like they didn't have a really good, strong family upbringing, and they're just pissy little individuals. But I think if you go back all the way to the Garden of Eden, and the snake, was it a snake or a serpent, or was it just an evil entity? So
Right.
if you go on the premise that God created everything, well, he created good, he also created evil. And in Judaism, we don't really have the devil, but we have something called the Yetzer Hora, which is the evil inclination. And it's just part of you that's really strong in some people and not so strong in others. And it tries to take you off the path of holiness. And it's that simple. But the Judaism is supposed to help give you the tools so that you can overcome this evil inclination. And for some people, it's much easier to do. And for some people, it's just makes a nasty life. And why? Why does God make it easier for this person and not for that person? Who knows? In Yiddish, there's a saying that says, "Man plans and God laughs," and then he laughs some more. So, why these things happen to us? No idea. We have a set of books called the Talmud, and it's basically these rabbinic discussions about uh, legal minutia on, should you do A, B, or C, or how do you do it, and all these things. So people think the Ten Commandments is it. That's the entire book of laws. But in the original Torah or Old Testament, there's actually a set of 613 laws that are all subsets of these original 10. And there's a lot of stuff to follow. And sometimes it's not so clear. And one of the reasons it's not so clear is God wants us to talk to each other. And you may not agree on law number 511 and how it's supposed to be executed, but you should be able to have a civil discussion about it, unlike most of our current political landscape. And we see that with the spirits as well. We have these things called shadim, which is like shade with an eam on the end, and they're some of the nighttime ghosts. And there's a fascinating section about this very poor farmer who it was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year's, one of the holiest days of the year, and his wife sent him out to get the ritual dinner, and he comes back late, and his wife's like, "Where's the dinner?" And he said, "Well, I met this guy at synagogue and he was in worse shape than us. So I gave him the money." And his wife, of course, goes ballistic on him, right? So she kicks him out, and as it would have it in this story, they live right across the street from the cemetery. So he has to spend one of our holiest nights of the year in this cemetery. And as he's sitting in the cemetery, he suddenly has access to all these different spirits and shadim, and he sees some of them are mocking other dead people, and some can see the future, and he overhears these spirits talking about the upcoming crop season, and that if you plant A, B, and C, you're going to do really well. This is basically insider trading, right?
Right.
It's so for whatever reason, he goes home a couple days later and he plants all these crops, and boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, he's affluent. They became one of the most affluent people in this little area. And so the next year, again, he gives away their money to a poor person and sits in the cemetery and, plant D, E, and F. And it goes on for a few years. And then he hears a bunch of spirits talking really poorly about these little girls who died very tragically, and they weren't given a nice burial because their families were so poor, and the other spirits were mocking them. And it's just like typical playground stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he tries to tell his wife that this is what he heard, and she says, "Oh well, their mom was she was a whore or whatever," she says, and stuff like that. And because he didn't correct his wife, that you shouldn't be saying that, go do something positive in her merit, he stopped getting the signals from the insider trading spirits, and they went back to what they were,
Right.
and became poor themselves.
So I mean, it's kind of a, it's kind of it's kind of a story of, like doing good, or it's almost like a tithing story in a way, right? But not really.
Mhm.
You're giving to the poor and you're helping them. Then you don't, and it kind of like everything kind of stops after that.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to be learned, especially in the stories of like the Torah or the Holy Bible for Christians and everything. There's so many positive things you can take out of it. I feel even for those people who don't want to believe. I mean, I look at it like this: if it makes you a better person in some way, shape, or form, I don't know how you could go wrong. I mean, I really don't. Like, I know there's a lot of people who refute me, who say, "Oh, like I also do paranormal investigation on the side. I'm a musician,
Mhm.
a lot of different things." And people ask me, "Well, oh, how could you possibly claim to be a Christian if you do this and this?" And it's like, well, my experience is different than yours, right? But what I'm doing,
Mhm.
I may be wrong, I may be right, but I'm doing things that I feel are okay. I'm not doing them in a malicious way. I'm not doing it for evil intent, and I'm trying to be a good version of myself as well. So at the very least, you can learn a lot from this stuff. What's interesting for you being Jewish is you guys are Jewish. The Jewish cultures that we're rallying back to what history's done over and over again, aren't we? Right now, and people are getting very
Mhm.
angry at the Jewish community once again over what's going on in Israel and in the Middle East. And I mean, how do you feel about all of this? Are you seeing any of this where you're currently located?
Well, there's a lot of very pro Hamas, pro Palestinian rallies, and you can tell the issue's not about land
Yeah.
because they're attacking schools and synagogues. Like I'm not sure how many 4-year-olds or kindergarten kids that are affecting world policy,
Right.
but
Euro.
so it's just asinine. And then the people that are real investigative reporters that are following the money, they're alleging that people like George Soros and people like that are, giving money to these people to be paid protesters.
Right.
So it's it's really hard for the average person to understand. And um, you look at the players that are involved, like Qatar or Qatar, how I guess there's different ways to pronounce it. They're the most double dealing country in the world.
Yeah.
You know, they fund the Russians, they fund the Chinese, they fund Hamas, Hezbollah, but they're also negotiating on behalf of Israel to get the hostages back. Like, I don't understand how that works until somebody explained to me, well, they want the contract to rebuild Gaza. So they get Gaza destroyed, they want it back, and then they want to get paid to rebuild what they've just destroyed. But then their neighbor, United Arab Emirates, who is very Israel friendly and has signed the Abraham Accords, they also want to rebuild it. But with, on the surface, much purer intentions. And if you look at what they've done to their country architecturally, politically, it would seem to be, the good guys.
Right.
But how do you really, really know?
It's hard to tell, and it's so interesting because we're not sitting in these meetings, all these secret meetings with all these politicians and all these people, so we have no idea I can only guess and even come up with conspiracy theories as to why like America is doing what we're doing. I wonder to myself, why are we funding the Ukraine so much, right? Like, why are we dumping billions and
Mhm.
billions each week into the Ukraine to fight Russia? Like, are we fighting an invisible boogeyman? Is Russia the boogeyman? And then like the whole world is on fire right now. So it makes me wonder, like, especially from a supernatural standpoint, like, is this something that is going to happen? Is this a necessary thing? Is this something that's always happened? Like throughout history, like we're just repeating the cycles over and over again. I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think that this is something that's going to get settled, or do you think that we're going to be in a flat out world war by the time this is all over with?
I don't think it'll come to a world war. Um, it is a repeating cycle. It's just, because of social media and the news cycles, we see it more than our parents or grandparents or great grandparents
Right.
would have seen it.
Yeah.
Um, somebody said to me a few weeks ago, like, do you think if you lived in 200 years ago, the likelihood you knew 30 people outside of your family was pretty small
Yeah, absolutely.
because you lived on your farm, and now it's like, 30 people just walking up and down the block.
Yeah.
So we know so many more people, and we get so many more different viewpoints, positive and negative. Um, I think the one good thing we've learned out of this is Russia doesn't know how to fight a war.
They're not doing great, are they? Considering they have so many people and so many, they spend a lot of money on their defenses, but then when you look at it, it's like, wow, they're just not doing doing very well, are they?
Yeah, I mean, we always thought of them as this super power,
Mhm.
the arch enemy. And granted, Ukraine has some help, but they don't have the A weapons
Yeah.
that you know that the US has available, or France or England.
What was it, a year
And
ago? All those vehicles were stalled. I mean, like, like hundreds of military vehicles carrying things were just stalled. And I don't know if that was a tactic by them or not, but it was interesting
Mhm.
that all of a sudden a lot of their weaponry and stuff was just stalling out and doing absolutely nothing on the battlefield.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember who it was. It was like somebody from one of those think tanks said, Russians still got this centrally planned economy. And in war, you have to innovate and be agile.
Yeah.
And they just don't have that capability. And they're, 5 to 7 years behind in replacing all their tanks and airplanes and munitions. Like, they're buying munitions from North Korea,
Yeah.
and the North Korea weaponry, a lot of it is Soviet era from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think those anti-aircraft guns are working too well.
It's like the Cubans, but like back when Castro, I mean, they were still driving, 50s cars, and it's like, everyone was so afraid of Cuba because of its proximity to, our continent and everything. But it was like, man, they weren't really reinventing the wheel there either. But on a lighter note, Fred, I feel like my wife would punch me in the arm if I didn't ask you, because you are a Canadian.
Uh-oh.
We watch Oak Island. Do you watch the Oak Island show at all? Do you guys have that there?
No, I've never heard of it. Tell me more.
The curse of Oak Island. Oak Island is up there in Canada. I think it's in the Nova Scotia area. Is that?
Okay.
And basically, supposedly, there's a treasure on this island. Like they think that they can trace back, like the Knights of the Templar might have even brought like treasures to be buried there and hidden. Maybe even
Mm-hmm.
the Ark of the Covenant and all of this. And so they've been on there. There's a channel here in the United States, the History Channel, that it's on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of seasons of it. But man, the thing that drives me crazy about this show is they are treasure hunters. They're doing things, but like just when they're getting close to something, they're starting to find the traces of metal and treasure. They move on to
Mm-hmm.
something else. And it's like I begin to wonder, are they ever going to find anything on this dang island? Because it's like all they're doing is pulling up clay samples and wood, and it is fascinating. Like, why would they have these tunnels and all of this interest? Because the funny thing about it is whoever did this, they know for a fact that there were tunnels going from the ocean. So they're basically like booby trap tunnels to keep. So if you started getting far enough in there, it would just continue to fill up with water to keep people away from this
Mm-hmm.
treasure. But they have yet to find anything major there. So I was just curious if you even knew anything. Do you watch a lot of TV, Fred?
I don't. My sister lives in that area. She's in Nova Scotia. I have to ask her if she's heard of this. But often there's reasonable explanations for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking we can't even find Amelia Earhart or the Malaysian jet.
Right.
So finding the Ark of the Covenant It's like, unless God's like, okay, guys, I'll show it to you.
It's a literal needle in a haystack. I mean, not only that, but like look at all the archaeological digs throughout the world. I mean, they're uncovering all this stuff that's been buried under, you know, many feet of sand, dirt, grass, all this stuff. I mean, there's pyramids, in like South America that are basically covered up by the wildlife and everything, and they're starting to uncover all this stuff. So who knows what's under there? I know there are a lot of the, to get really weird, a lot of the conspiracy people think that we've had multiple resets throughout history. Be it so
Yeah.
we've had advanced civilizations many times throughout millions of years. I don't know that to be true. I know what the Bible tells me. I know what I know what certain teachers that I talk to tell me, and it's really almost impossible, really, to make any sense of it. Like I want to believe this or that, but it's hard for me to believe that the Earth is only 4,000 years old or whatever whatever they're saying. I mean, what do you think? I know we're getting close to where we probably need to promote anything you want, but in closing, I mean, what do you think on that type of thing? What say you on how old the Earth is? How old do you think it is?
Well, I think biblically they say it's like 6,500 years old or something.
Yeah,
But then are we talking the same type of years? Like,
right.
are they talking human years or are they talking God years?
Yep.
And I think, what's the new telescope they have? Is it the James Watt
The James Webb.
telescope?
Yep. James
Wait, James Watt. It's like, firstly, the science and the genius of the people that have put this stuff together is mind altering. But now I read that they're using entire galaxies as lenses for the Webb telescope. So they're aiming it at a galaxy, 8 billion years away, and using that galaxy and its refractics and whatever else is in there. And they're seeing another 3 billion years past that. And they're getting close to the Big Bang.
Yeah,
Uh, so I think if you believe in God, well, God could do whatever he wanted.
absolutely.
And, we don't have to constrain ourselves to what we see as time or how we interpret the Bible, because we we know there were miraculous things that happen in the Bible that are outside the constraints of what we see as time and space.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I was walking to synagogue yesterday, it was freaking windy, and it's almost Passover, and I'm thinking, well, are they parting the sea again somewhere? Like, how's this?
Right.
You know,
Well, I think that at the very least, I want to be clear to people who are listening. I want to be very clear to the critics who ask me why I can talk about this stuff and be a Christian. I'll preface it by this. I think what Fred said was very I don't know where the word would be, poignant, I guess, or I think it was bold. We don't understand it when they're talking about this amount of years. We don't understand what that means. Yes, and in if you believe in God, and I do, in God years. So I mean, this may be controversial, maybe it's not. I believe that yes, those years are listed in that way, but I don't think it's listed in a literal term myself, and I could be wrong because I just don't think that would explain dinosaurs and all this and we could go on a whole another show, Fred, about people who don't believe in they think that they're manufactured in a in a factory and then we're burying them and uncovering them. I don't think we're going to those links at all. I think that we just don't our human minds don't understand the or fathom what exactly took place. Was there a Big Bang? Yes, but the Big Bang, I believe, was God, and I believe that that's where they're happy. I believe that the center nucleus of where everything happened started at God and spread from there. And people can refute me all they want, and I don't mind. I don't feel bad sharing my opinion on it, and I appreciate you sharing yours. I know you don't have a lot of time, Fred. I wish we had more time, but everybody's got things to do. Please tell me where we can find you, whatever you want to promote right now.
Well, they can find my book with the cool cover anywhere on Amazon or most digital sites. You can find me on LinkedIn, Fred Rutman on LinkedIn. I have a Instagram that I probably don't keep up as well as I should. So, which is repeatedly DF, repeatedly dead Fred. And my nickname, of course, is from my friend Deanna Petrini, who called me up one day and said, "Hey, repeatedly dead Fred, how's it going?"
Which is a name, by the way.
Thank you. She's a very creative woman. So, yeah, I'm out there on the socials. I'm fairly easy to find either by my name or my nickname. And you can reach me at repeatedly.dead.fred@gmail. And if you have questions about, podcasts or the books or whatever, or talking about God or how you hate God, whatever your opinion is, um, we all have them.
We all have them. That's the thing. And don't forget to listen to the Dead Man Walking podcast. Listen to Repeatedly Dead Fred on there, doing his Repeatedly Dead Fred things. And man, you've been an awesome guest. I hope to talk to
Thank you,
you
Cain.
sometime. I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if you're supposed to say what a happy Passover. I don't know if it's happy or not, but I know Passover is coming for you guys.
Sure, it's the freedom. It's the holiday of freedom and redemption.
Well, happy Passover to you. And, I wish you the best of luck at everything, Fred.
Thank you, Cain. Thank you for having me on. Want to do another one? I'm happy to do it.
I would love to schedule that soon. I will talk to you soon and we'll see you on the other side.
Okay. Bye, everybody.